Hey everyone, I'm Eric, and welcome back to another episode of the SDR Game Podcast. And I'm finally back for a new episode because after 2 months, we are recording this new episode. So just to explain what I was doing, so I moved to Mexico, so now I'm not recording my episodes from France, from France. And now I'm in Mexico City. So 10 days ago we just moved to France with my wife, and now we are enjoying the winter in Mexico. And the second thing is because I'm also joined a new company, Castor, as a founding BDR, and started the role a month ago, and things are going pretty well. Already booked 6 meetings so far for the company, and going to share that in the other episodes in the future. But today, I'm super excited because I have with me Amanda Wilde, Senior Manager, Enterprise Sales Development at Loopio. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and super excited to have you today because we are going to talk about data and from the leadership perspective, but also from the rep perspective. But before we start, can you explain what you do at Loopio? I want to say that it's more about, hey, how big your team is, what's enterprise at Loopio, and what does what Loopio does, actually.
Absolutely. So I'll start from the bottom and go to the top. Loopio is a response management platform. We essentially help high volume questionnaire responses and make it suck a lot less. We drive efficiencies, we increase collaboration. At the end of the day, increases quality of responses and also win rate on deals. We drive revenue. So it's a nice end-to-end solution. What I do at Loopio, we have about 31 people on our entire sales development org, both inbound and outbound, kind of a mix. I am one of 4 leaders within one of the 4 managers on the SDR team, and I lead the enterprise team. For us at Loopio, that is defined by employee-size companies between 500 and 5,000. So some people that might be more mid-market, but that's kind of the realm. Yeah.
And so for today, the topic is data. And I was reading on your LinkedIn profile actually yesterday when I was preparing the episode. So you mentioned in your LinkedIn you are an enthusiastic, data-driven leader looking to inspire and enable others. So what data means to you as a leader?
Yeah. Data makes me just either gut check myself. Am I doing the right thing? What am I telling my reps to do? Needs to be measurable so you know if it's working or not, right? So it's making sure that, in fact, my opinion, the path that I've sent my fearless reps down is something that is working. You need something measurable and data to be able to do that. So managing those rep conversations and making sure we are going in the right direction. And I think it's also important for upward communication. I also have to make sure that, my sales director and the company and the VP of sales knows what's going on. And data allows you to be the master of that story. So the quicker you can access that data and you can have a story behind it, the more that is actually going to be the narrative that's going to be able to show the effect that you're having in your role.
And here, I have a question about I'm super curious to know, when did you start to be more focused on data instead of your opinion, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I'm not being paid to say this, but when I discovered Atrium Sales Insights platform, as soon as I realized they take all of the data that's in Salesforce, that's in Outreach, that's in Gmail, like all of this stuff, and they make it an instant story. So I can see all of my reps that have ramped over time, which I had no visibility on previously. I could see how efficient they are. So are they doing the activities? And who is it actually, like, are ops being created and meetings being created? Who isn't? It really made me effective in being able to get quick, actionable insights to the data so I could coach to the individuals in the team and I could actually really access the data story quicker. And it helped me advocate for other tools or when we were ready to hire or cross functional assistance on like ICP or messaging, things like that. That's how powerful that was. It also exposed gaps in our sales force and our process of data we just weren't collecting. So like we didn't know our conversion rate from qualifications to meetings because we weren't measuring the meeting date. So it actually informed our process, kind of evolutionizing, getting better.
And so you started to mention a few metrics. So what are the most important metrics for you as a leader?
Yeah, I think as a baseline, you need to have activity metrics for your reps to be able to hit. You can't just say, I would like you to book 5 meetings. There's a lot of different ways to get there, right? Like, I both booked our own meetings. We know that there's a million different ways to get there. And some people, you have to have some type of path. So I think giving them one, how many accounts per day or week should we be doing? How many prospects per account should you be targeting to make sure we're not going after one when we really should be going after 5? What are all the prospects as well and what matters to them? And then making sure all of your actual activities will come off that. So, how many phone calls does that execute to? How many emails? Making sure that we're also using LinkedIn, that we're being creative and multi-threaded and also doing multi-channel outreach. But I think you have to tell people exactly what to do. And then where it gets really powerful is showing them where it's working, because you can actually see the gears turning before the meetings get booked, and you can tell them, like, you may not think it's working, but it is. Just keep going, and then it works. Because without the data, what happens is a rep will say, I only booked one meeting, I'm going to change my whole sequence. But maybe it was one thing that wasn't working, you just rip the whole thing apart, and now you're starting from zero. So that's why I feel like data is really important as a leader, to make sure I'm coaching properly and they see the power in what they're doing before the kind of end result, the finish line.
And it's funny that you're mentioning it because before Casa, I was working at Chili Piper, and when I joined Chili Piper, I joined as an SDR there, and I thought I was going to do the same as my previous job instead of trusting the process, like you were mentioning, and I tried to do my own process, and then, I struggled obviously doing that, and then I started to use the process of the company and start improving it, and I did way better doing that instead of doing my own process. And so I completely agree with you on that yeah, normally when you already obviously have a process, you know that you have previous track record, you can see that other reps had success. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah.
So you are talking about all of those metrics. So for example, do you set KPIs individually or more as a team? So meaning that each rep, do they need to do 50 calls per day, or each reps they can focus on the KPIs that they want to do? For example, if someone is better on email, you can do that. What do you do with that?
Yeah, I think at the beginning when someone starts, I always say, start on the thing that we know that works, and then we'll find what your magic is. We'll find your, like, if you say, I would like to just send emails, that's great, but I want to make sure you can book all of your calls on emails consistently, and that you aren't actually what you think is like maybe is more comfortable for you. You would have to send a heck of a lot more emails, because what people don't realize is the emails is actually, inbox is the hardest place. That's the busiest place. That's the, man, you can get deleted, not seen, like, that's where everybody is. So I think it's giving someone a framework. Let's start from this and measure it. And then I want to hear from you what excites you, what jazzes you up, where do you feel success is. Sometimes it's actually in a place where they were afraid of before. So are we avoiding something, or are we actually really effective at something? Because I think those are two completely different things. And if you don't have data and you don't have consistent results, usually people will say, I'm really good at emails. Like, no, you're just really comfortable.
No, which is true. And yeah, I agree with you, because on the beginning you can't say, yeah, focus on what you prefer. It's, yeah, you need to learn every channels and then focus on what you are really good at. Also, you are talking about the metrics from the rep perspective, but as a leader also, you are talking about the metrics. So when you are doing some reports for your leadership, what metrics are you looking for?
Yeah, so those key activity metrics to make sure that we are doing everything that we're supposed to do. So we would look at the basics of emails, calls, LinkedIn outreach, but then I like efficiency metrics over top of that. One, I want to measure quality. So how many of those ops that you create are being accepted by sales, and what is the volume of those, and what is the value of those, right? Are you trending above, kind of middle, below? Are you booking a lot of meetings and they're not converting into actual pipeline that we can sell? I want to see the quality of things. And then the other side, I want to see to make sure to make the case to, like, if I need a new tool, or like I was like, is if we're doing everything and all of our efforts are good, all the quality of accounts is good, all of the quality of our outreach is good, and it's still not working, maybe we need a tool. Maybe you help me build a business case so I can have that upward conversation to say, hey, we're doing everything, we need help. We can't get phone numbers. All our emails are bouncing. Or, we need a dialer because we can't call this many people, and that's where we're seeing success. So I think that's how that data helps. But like, the efficiency and effectiveness of our team, I want to see how can you get to quota with doing the least amount of activity and be super efficient with your time. That's what I would like to see, because then my reps can have more time to be able to work on self-development or hit accelerators, and that will help them in their career growth within Loopio as well.
When, for example, you have a rep who is not performing, what metrics? What are you looking for in your metrics? Do you start with activities, or what do you do?
I actually don't start with activities right away, because usually if it's poor performance, that is already there, right? So one, I would look at, do you understand our ideal customer profile? Are you able to identify it? And how long does that take you? That's usually the biggest barrier, is someone is spending an hour reviewing accounts and they're like, I'm not sure. The second one I look for is, are they efficiently using the tools? A lot of the times that's the big one, is they're doing a basic search in sales nav every single time and looking at the same accounts as everybody else, and they're saying they're all taken. So making sure they understand how to use all of the tools efficiently and effectively.
How do you that? Do you shadow them to see that?
I shadow them. I have reps that are strong in those tools record videos that actually go in our onboarding. So there's something that they can actually go back to. And we do a lot of sessions where I myself know how to use the tools. So I will go in there. The other thing I love to do is actually we have podcasts hours and like webinar hours where we'll watch 30 minutes to President's Club or something like that on a specific feature, because it's much faster and more interesting for them to hear from someone else other than me all the time. And then I don't need to create it. And it usually sparks some type of interest as well. So there's multiple ways that we try to build in interest for tool usage.
And can you tell me more about that? Those sessions, podcast sessions, webinar sessions, because I'm really into this also, but I was not doing that at all with my team. So is it like 30 minutes, an hour? What do you do during those sessions?
For my sessions, it's usually a full hour, because I want them, and it's laptops open. Like, we're building things. We are actually building the list instead of just listening to me go on and on about how great Sales Navigator is. We actually have an active session, so I think is missing in most companies, is that people are listening, but they're on Slack, they're on their phone, they're distracted. So getting them like on there, I usually will actually say, someone else share your screen and let's build this together. It focuses everybody's attention and kind of gets them to stop. So I think that's one. One, you've got to upfront sell them on the value that this meeting is for them and the value of it for them. If they think you're just going through the motions and it's just like, oh, they just want to make sure they're getting the adoption out of sales nav, it's a very different approach than like a value driven approach, where this is why you need this and it's going to make you money.
No, which is true, because for example, I'm remembering some stuff at Chili Pepper when, for example, during the onboarding, we had a lot of trainings on Sales Loft, and then we don't. And then later during the year, we were finding out that some people, like you mentioned, they are not really comfortable with the tool, and they didn't know little things on the tool that maybe another rep learn on their own. And I think that's super helpful.
Yeah. Peer-led mentor sessions are so powerful. So powerful. I have amazing, talented people that I've been able to work with and leveraging them to show their peers and then using that as like a vehicle, put that in onboarding. That's pretty powerful, right? And then that helps them on their path to getting more comfortable speaking in front of audiences, gets them kind of on that path and getting them more exposure across the business as well. So has a lot of benefits.
So earlier I mentioned a rep was not performing. What do you do with a rep who is performing actually? So what metrics are you looking for? Or what are you looking for with a rep who is performing?
That is performing. I like to know that they know how they're performing and why, right? Like, do they know what they're doing or is it accidental? That is a big difference, right? Did they stumble upon a territory that's great, which is fine, but like, is there longevity to this? So I look at like, wow, you're doing really well. Like, why is that? I usually have an idea, but I'll listen to them. So if they understand like I'm organizing my week, I know how to hit my numbers, I plan for PTO, I know how to use my tools. I use all of them. I could see they're at the top of all of them. They're openly sharing things with peers. They are focused. They understand the ICP and the buyer personas. They're really, they're focused on, and they're usually the ones that are asking for the most feedback, which I've noticed over my time. The ones that are constantly thinking, I need to do more. They hold themselves super accountable. Like top performers, I don't think take it for granted. There's something in there where they're super curious and constantly looking for feedback and constantly also have that fear of not being at the top that kind of drives all of that. But yeah, to like close the loop on that question, I think it's top performers who know exactly what they do to get there and are continuously trying to evolve on that.
No, that's an excellent point you mentioned because right now I'm also starting to do episodes with top performers on the podcast, and a question that at the beginning I wanted to ask is, hey, what do you think you are doing differently than the rest of your team? But like you mentioned, generally they don't know specifically what they're doing differently because I think sometimes, once I remember there is someone I saw on LinkedIn. I think someone that was asking for those who are watching soccer or football, for those who are in Europe, they were asking if you ask to Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, why is he really good, is going to answer 100 things. And I think with a top performer, it's pretty much the same because they are doing a lot of different things, but they don't know what specific things they are doing differently. And like you mentioned, they are super. There is a lot, but they are more curious than the rest of the team, or they are super competitive, for example. So earlier you mentioned that also you are using Atrium to be really data driven. Are you using other things to keep track on your data, or what do you use?
Yeah, everything I can get my hands on is is the answer. Yeah, Atrium is great for pulling it all together, but I also look at a lot of metrics in Gong. I listen to a lot of calls. I follow a lot of deals. I listen to a lot of calls on the sales, like account executive side as well, to see how are we doing the best to bring over the best pipeline. So I think always look at that, set up key triggers in there to make that like data kind of circle up because it can get pretty lost in Gong as well. I think we use Outreach here, but I've also used SalesLoft. I think analyzing best time to call per day, call talk time, making sure that people are actually doing dials, getting through, diagnosing. Like I've noticed lately, the connect rates have dipped down again, and it's trying to figure out like why is that. But if I didn't look at that, I might not realize. I would think, well, they're dialing, so eventually it'll work out. But you have to change your strategy if your connect rate goes from 20% to 10, right? Like we're gonna have to do more dials, right? So that's where the data and Salesforce data I can always look at all day long.
What was your connect rate before and now? Because you're just mentioning that, for example, your
Yeah.
connect rate was.
I just looked at it the other day, and this is only a small sample size of 2 weeks, but it's gone down to closer to 10%, and we were at about 20%. 20% is where I would like us to be. So down to 10, it's like, what happened? Is it a forever thing? Or is it a we're not calling the right people? Like, is it our tool? We're not getting the mobile numbers. Like what's going on, right? So I'm in diagnose mode right now with the data.
And do you have an idea for now? Or or not yet?
A couple things. One, I think we had an overarching amount of non-North America companies, which are harder to get phone numbers for. The other one is we had a lot of companies where we use Zoom Info as well, and we're doing a push to go a little more up market on my team, and we're getting a lot of like head offices, which is hurting our connect rate because nobody in my team who's all been working over COVID knows what to do with a gatekeeper. They have no idea. So just exposed a nice little area where I have to teach them what a gatekeeper is, how to get through to there. The other thing I would say as well, it focuses on the quality of a cold call. A connect is even more valuable if you have less of them. That means your game has to go up. So we've actually increased enablement and practice on the team and tried to make sure that we're leading with a challenge we see and not kind of letting the prospect lead us to the challenge. So we've just kind of pivoted a little bit.
Okay. And also earlier you were talking about Gong. You are looking for metrics. What metrics are you looking for in Gong?
Yeah, there's some key ones just we want to look for. One keyword is like, are they the permission-based openers? We want to listen to that. Are their patience and talk time is a big one, right? Like how much are they talking on a call versus a prospect? We're looking for a lot of those things because there's a lot of coaching opportunities in there. So and then we also want to see there's some keywords that are just like Loopio specific. We want to see if they're either doing or not doing, just to reinforce some of like our command the message methodology and our sales methodology. So we have triggers for all of that so we can make sure that we're right in there highlighting things that are good to shout out to reinforce what great looks like. And then there's others where we can make sure we can go in and make a quick little like, hey, little tweak and address coaching.
And now, before we move to the rep perspective, what do you know right now that you wish you knew 3 or 4 years ago about data?
Oh man, like for me, I think how powerful it is and how understanding your own book of business and your own data and your efficiency. I was a super stressed out salesperson when I first started. I was like, can't wait for an inbound to come in and kind of like maybe hit my number. Like at the beginning of the month, the quarter, I'd be like, I have no idea how I'm going to get there. But I think like time management and pairing that with data can make the 8 hours you have in your day very effective. And you can have faith that you have a plan in place that's measurable and it reduces your stress. If someone had told me that a long time ago, I would have enjoyed my vacations a lot more and I probably would have had less gray hair for sure.
And now let's talk about the reps. So how do you teach that to your reps? So do you have like something in your onboarding, for like a session in your onboarding to talk about metrics or data? What do you do?
Um, there's two parts to it. One, I think teaching them how to use Salesforce and how to like build their own reports, why that matters. Nobody taught me that when I was first a rep. It's very powerful to be able to use that and start to understand all the key data points and why certain fields matter. So that's one thing. I think showing them why things are the way they are and what they look like to other people. So when it comes into like recognizing what's a bad behavior or something that's maybe against the ROE, like rules of engagement, to make them understand like how this is visible, how this is used is very powerful when it comes to like data. So it's like the data that other people see without talking to you, what does that look like? What is the data that other people are looking at? How to understand your conversion rates, how to understand the pipeline, how to understand that the ICP matters so that AE is excited about the opportunities you give in and not like, like that. And I think the other side is I show them Atrium and I show them against their peers. I show them all of their like tier 1 and 2 metrics that show the efficiency. I show them like if they're especially like just out of ramp, I show them where the needle is moving so that they don't think that they're behind. Because a lot of people are like, I haven't booked a meeting in 3 weeks. It means I'm not good. Well, no, it's only been 3 weeks. And look at all the things that are happening, right? You're doing all the right things. But if you don't intentionally have a way to show people that, sometimes they don't see it. And it actually delays their onboarding even more and their ramping. So I think that's why data is powerful as well.
And for example, do you give them, they have access to Atrium, they can, after you show them Atrium, they have access to Atrium all the time, and so they can see their metrics, right?
Yeah, Atrium's wonderful partner. They've given all of our reps access to Atrium, so they're actually able to have their own dashboards built for them, and they've been trained on how to use those, and it's been like life changing. It's really, really great for them because they get it.
Yeah. The actually, you mentioned you have tier 1 and tier 2 metrics. What are your tier 1 and tier 2 metrics?
Yeah, so the tier one metrics are really just like the activity. Are you putting in the work? Tier two is kind of the efficiency on it, right? So are you putting in enough accounts, enough new prospects, touches per account, all of that? When you get underneath that, it's of all the activity you do, how much activity does it take to book one opportunity for you? And where are you against your peers? What's your email engagement rate look like, right? Those are the tier two ones. And that's actually, in my opinion, they should be tier one because I think you need the foundation and that's like table stakes. But if you can make that super efficient and make sure you're doing all the right things and do it in less time, why wouldn't you want to do that? Right? Like, if you can do this job sending 200 emails instead of 1,000, wouldn't you want to do that? I would, right?
No, that's true. And also earlier you mentioned Salesforce. On Salesforce, you are showing them how to create a report. What do you add on those reports? In fact, what do you show them when you create those reports? Because I think that's a really good point. I think I never had like training on that. I always learn how to create reports on my own. So, what do you teach them?
Yeah, so we usually, again, like it's two parts. Usually I'm showing them something, but usually try to pull in RevOps to show them because they actually know what they're doing. So, but for me, I try to show them all the creative ways to find all of the accounts that they're looking for, right? So, how to pull a close lost report and get some of the mess out of there so that you're actually looking at things that you can work instead of just a long list of 1,000 accounts, right? Like looking for how to sort by their own segment, how to sort by certain industries, how to sort by like close lost reasons so that you're only looking at the ones that there was no functionality gap, right? Because you don't want to reopen an op that you still can't close. So that's one. How to like creatively, how to pull reports on leads from inbound that they never actually engaged with. So they showed interest at some point, but it didn't go anywhere. Gold mine, right? So that's some creative ways. And then also ways to like be able to make sure that they have multiple ways of looking at their own account list. Because I'm a big component of like, we've put in something called SDR tiers here at Loopio. So they have like 1, 2, 3, and 4, one being the highest fit to the ICP. And I've encouraged them all to go in and rate their book of business because that's what it is, so that they can be very intentional about where they spend their time when they have 200 accounts, right? They're not all equal. So getting them to, and then I can also review that. We can look at it together and I can spot any gaps or like walk me through why you think this is a tier one account. Because sometimes it's not, but I need to know why they're thinking it instead of just saying that's not it and moving on. So there's a lot of teachable moments that come up from teaching them to be able to pull reports and use data.
So we had some issue with the app to record, and so you are talking about the tiers of your accounts. So you are talking about the tier 1, and you are talking about the 200 accounts on their list that all of them they are not equal. So can you? So you are talking about that, and actually that would be a really good transition for the rest of the conversation. But before that, I wanted just to talk about the way I was doing that also with the team. So you talking about the metrics. So we are not using Salesforce. In fact, yes, we are using Salesforce to keep track on some metrics and Salesloft for other metrics, but we are using a spreadsheet where we are showing the impact of, for example, if this month we are working on the open rate, for example, of the person, how many emails do you need to send this month instead of, hey, I need to send, like you were mentioning, yeah, you can send 1,000 emails per week or 200, depending on the efficiency of those emails. But also if you just work on the open rate, that's the difference. And it's easier to improve your open rate than, for example, improving the whole efficiency of your repair rate, for example, your emails. And same on the phone. If your connect rate is 5%, yeah, maybe we should work first on your connect rate instead of working on the full cold call instead of, because 5% is pretty low. So and we were doing that on a spreadsheet, and we are seeing the difference of just by improving, instead of 5% of, if you do 10% connect rates, it just reduces by 50% your number. Of course, you need to make just to hit your quota. So now let's talk about the tier one, the ICP, and all you're doing at Loopio, because when we were preparing the episode, you were mentioning that you have like an ICP Skill Labs actually, and what's that? Can you explain to the audience what you're doing with those labs?
Absolutely. That's my baby, the crazy thing that pops in your head. You're like, would this make sense? When I was back leading a team at PartnerStack, this was kind of something we came across because I realized everyone had a different interpretation and understanding of the ideal customer profile. And when I thought about it, everybody at the company kind of had their own definition of what our ideal customer was. So you realize that's something you have to be really intentional about, not just saying once, but like giving people the ability to practice and hone that and really get good at qualification, right? You can spend a lot of time on the wrong person when you think you have the right ICP. So where this came about was, one, I created the tiers of 1, 2, 3, 4 back at PartnerStack, and I defined what are you looking for, right? We sold to, and we still do, let's say computer software companies. They need to be selling to businesses. We don't sell to people that have consumers. So don't look any further. If they only sell to consumers, do not keep looking at that account. So it's getting people to be like, oh, tier 4, we don't sell to that. So there's a little bit like not trying to squeeze everybody in. They're like, yeah, but there might be a chance. That's going to take it longer for you. So what I realized when I was looking through the activity, looking through some of the accounts in people's lists that they were putting as like a 1 or a 2, and I'm like, these are wildly different. I noticed some people really, really good at qualification and other people not. So instead of doing this on a one-on-one, I decided to bring everyone together, and I said, everybody record a video that's 1 minute long, no later. I will turn it off if it's longer than a minute. We only have an hour, right? And walk through, where did you find this account? And why is it qualified? You have 1 minute. So it forced everyone into, because one thing I realized, they're spending way too much time trying to do this. I need to force them into like a time amount. So forcing them into 1 minute was getting them to be efficient, which is driving to me. I only wanted to take a minute. So very eye-opening for them to watch that from peers and to see what someone else was seeing. And then they look at theirs and they're like, sometimes before they even played their video, they're like, I already realize I'm wrong. So you can rip me apart when you see the video. It was the self-awareness of like, oh, right? And then over time it evolved and I actually gave them accounts. So we would have like newer people, more tenured people. I would throw in like red herrings and be like, I know this one is not qualified, but I also know this one person is like overqualifies, right? And there's one person that's like, I'll take a chance on anything. Giving them the same account and then seeing their videos back to back, very, very effective. So that is kind of how that came to be, and where it kind of goes over time within like a team that has mature and like newer reps.
What I really like about that is because you're doing that in group, and I think when you have the top performer showing what they are looking for in an account, it's going to train and show the rest of the team what's a really good account. It's not just you teaching them, hey, what's a good account? Now you have a top performer showing them how they are going after an account. And the something I really like with that is because, for example, at Chili Piper, we were selling only to companies with B2B sales team. And if they don't have a B2B sales team, it's a waste of time to go after this account, because the buyer person, for the decision maker, generally they were on the marketing team, but the user were the sales team. And if you don't have sales team, well, no one is going to use the product. And for example, with the team at the beginning, I was showing them an account, a really good fit. If you check the marketing side, they have a lot of tools on the website. They have marketing automation platforms. They have a CMO, 5, 6 people on the marketing team. But if you check that, you say, yeah, that's a really good fit account. But if you check the side of the sales team, they had 0 people on the sales team. So it was not you can't sell to this company. And when something we realized with that is at the beginning, we are showing them first check the marketing team before us to say if it's a good fit. But then we started to show them, hey, you need first to check the sales team. And I think there is a lot of things they can check, but if they don't have a sales team, that's a tier 4. You don't go with this account.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part that was unique that came across this that I wasn't expecting was like another efficiency is like you find an account, you qualify it, then you move on. But actually, you just did the research for your outreach when you were doing that. So, like, while you're there in that minute, click on every button you can, learn about who do you think their customers are, what companies, like, what segments do they operate. Like, a demo button on a software company is gold for finding information to be able to use in your outreach, right? You can tell half the time it tells you exactly who their people they want. They have like a bucket. Like if you're not in these people, then they don't care. Well, that's a great amount of information, right? So I think being curious on a website when you're already there and not going back and doing it and then being intentional about just jotting those things down to make yourself more efficient was something that was great that came out of that exercise as well.
That's a good point because I'm not going to mention everything because obviously there is a long list that you can check. But for example, the product was really good for companies with a SMB, market function on the sales team and not the enterprise function. And so if you know that on the website they have it's a 100 people company and they have only big companies logos on the websites, that's a really good sign that they are not selling to SMBs companies.
Yeah, and that's important, right? Like we're selling RFPs. If you're only selling to one individuals or if you're only selling to SMB, you're probably not going to have a high volume of RFPs. So I probably shouldn't be thinking that would make you a tier 2 or 3 account. Like knowing who their customers are is extremely important. How do they make money? Extremely important. You have to be able to and it takes practice. Not everybody is great at figuring that out, but learning by osmosis. I think also being remote, these conversations aren't just happening anymore. People aren't rolling over going, look at this account, man, it's sick. You're doing it by yourself in your room. So I think this allows that learning that really we don't get from being remote. We have to be intentional about making sure to showcase that.
And that's something I forgot to ask you. So your team is fully remote?
Yeah, we're remote, but we're all located around Toronto, so we can go into an office, but not everybody does.
Okay. And just what's the tier 1, for example, at Loopio? Because you're mentioning that you have 4 tiers. So what's tier 1, for example?
Yeah, so we're just developing and kind of that right now. We're refining it. So for us, it's like, is it a top tier vertical? So it would be computer software selling to businesses, business services, financial services would be the top ones, and financial services. So those are all the ones that we want you to focus on that. Where we can get lost is like, oh, a construction company just came inbound. They would be really good for us because they do a lot of proposals and bids, right? But they do images. So 50% of the time we actually can't help them because we don't do images. That's not really where bread and butter is. So that would be where I want to focus people's attention on. If they come inbound, that's great. That is not the same as someone we should be going outbound. So making sure that if they looked at our website, they would see more people like them. AEs know how to sell to them because we've sold to them a lot. We have a lot of case studies to support them. So getting the focus on that. That's the big thing. And then we would look at, do they have enterprise customers? Do they have a volume issue? Do they have a proposal team? One of my favorite things when we're talking about just RFPs is, what is the size of the sales team in terms of the size of the proposal team? If it's like 1%, you know that they're like underwater. There's nothing worse than an AE breathing down your neck for an RFP that's 600 questions long because they got to get their deadline done so they can get their deal, right? We also serve like security questionnaires. So like I'm thinking like solution engineers trying to quarterback getting all of these like security questionnaires done with an AE going, hey, I need this to close my deal. But they still have all their other roles and responsibilities. And typically these areas are ones that are just like marketing gets the money for software or the sales team gets the some money for software. This is usually an area that is just like underserviced and kind of just swept under the rug a little bit. And there's some innovations that have happened that people don't even know about. Like they don't know how great their job could be with like software. So it's really exciting to make sure that we focus on those verticals where we make the most impact, because with cold outbound, you want to make sure that you're making that impact and they can see the improvements in their world.
And yeah, I think that's my computer again.
Uh-oh.
Not sure what's
I
happening,
hope
but
you got that. It was great.
yeah, no, but with this tool actually, that's really good because even though it's you have some issues, it's still recording. So that's why I love this tool. But I'm not sure if it's because you are the first one I'm recording right now since I've moved. So I'm not sure if it's
Maybe.
the Wi-Fi
Yeah.
or, but I will need to do some tests next time. So sorry about
No
that.
worries. That's
And
okay.
actually, we are at the end of the episode. And so, what question do you have for me?
Oh my goodness. I think when it comes to like, we're talking a lot about like data. What is something as you as a rep that you wish that you had access to with data back then as a rep that you just wish you either understood or that you had access to?
Atrium, actually, because same as you,
Right?
we were using it at Chili Pepper, and I really love it as a manager because it was showing me things that I didn't know about the Rampier, the stuff like that, and that's something I was really curious to use. And then, for example, I know if I didn't mention that at the beginning of the episode, but Florin, who introduced us actually for the episode, I watched one of his training the other day on Pavilion, and he was showing the impact of the open rate, for example, for or the result of your email, and that's something I didn't think about before. All the impact of just improving small little things on your processes, that the whole impact on your results, and that's something I wish I knew earlier because that's something I think I will have results quicker. I think in certain months. So.
That is such a powerful thing, right? I think just enabling reps to be like, why should you look at data and why does it matter for you? It's not just your manager bugging you to update this and update that and telling you about things. A 10% increase in your open rate will naturally lead to higher replies. So, like, testing your subject line, right? Like if you, what is the industry standard and like what are you at, and understanding that so you can say, well, 20%, I guess it's good. That's where everyone else is. That's horrible. You should, right? So, but if you don't know that, you'll think, well, everyone else is there. So it's great. You're actually making your job harder, right? So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and also, for example, here at the new job at Castor, we are just starting the BR function. And for example, we are checking the open rate yesterday, and we have like 15% this week. So we know something is wrong with the emails. So we need to work on what's wrong because we had the setups on the. Well, I don't remember all the technical stuff to do that, but you need to check that, and it's working. But we need to figure out what's going on. So same as you, we need to understand what's going on right now.
Yeah. Your next episode should be about email deliverability and you should have Jed from Mailshake. He'll solve all your problems.
That was on my list actually. So, but yeah,
There you
with you,
go. Yeah.
Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. It was a really fun conversation. Thank you for taking the time today. But before we end the episode, do you want to share something else to the audience?
I think the one overarching thing, if any like individual contributors are out there watching this, is that pursuing data will actually help you to be able to like protect your mental health and well-being while being in a sales role. Typically we can get like, I've got to push, I've got to do more, I didn't get there. If you understand how to get there and use time management and data, you will just be, you can enjoy your PTO, you can plan for days off, you can still hit quota and have a life. And that is the gift that data and like time blocking and calendar blocking has given to me. So if you take nothing else from this, do that and like, be well.
No, and I completely agree with you on the PTO side because now you can front load your months. For example, something we didn't talk during the period and that we did really well at Chili Piper, the Q4 actually front loading your efforts in Q4 because knowing that December and November they are short months. That's something also you can you know that in October you need to front load November, December.
Christmas happens every year. Don't be surprised.
Exactly. So it was nice to see you, and thanks everyone for listening to this episode, and I see you on the next episode.
Thank you for having me. It was great.